Welcome to the Opt-in Podcast. I am your host, Melissa Franks, and this is where we go from surviving to thriving in business. I had a moment of inspiration for this podcast, and as I started to think about it, what really became interesting to me was I have not recorded a podcast about this topic ever. The podcast is almost 3 years old, and we have not once talked about this, and this is a topic that I am so passionate about. I have so many thoughts and feelings. This is something I talk to my clients about all the time, and never once have you and I had a conversation about it. It's ending today. What we're talking about today is creating an annual budget. I'm so excited, and you're probably ready to poke your eyeballs out. And if that is true, we're going to flip the script on why budgeting is the best thing that you can do for your business. We're going to have a little bit of a story time about how I ended up falling in love with budgeting when we all know I don't like finance, and how I now work with clients and see it benefiting them in the long run to go through this practice on an annual basis. We will likely have more podcasts in the future around what to do with your budget once you have it. So what to do in the year for which the budget is applicable to. We're not going to cover that today. This is just going to be the nuts and bolts of how to build a budget and make sure that it actually works for you. So here is our little moment of story time. I actually got to the C-suite without ever really dabbling in finance after the 9 months that I spent there early on in my career. If you don't know the story, I worked for a retail giant, and at some point my operations role got moved to finance. I hung out there for 9 months, and I realized very, very quickly that I was not a finance professional, that in fact, that was the worst place for me, and I went running to technology. And the rest is history, because that built my career. My time in finance, though, never left me. In fact, some of the things that I still say today, some of the things that I look for, even now, were things that I was taught by the VP of finance that I worked at. She was exacting in her level of quality and diligence and accuracy of the financial reports. And if you know me, I'm always kind of it's kind of right. It's close enough. That did not work for her. And so while it was a maddening assignment and it was the longest 9 months of my life, it also was so foundationally beneficial to me as I advanced through my career and started to become responsible for things. You see, my love affair with budgeting didn't actually happen until 2018 when I became a COO. I know, this is shocking, right? And so when we look at the big landscape of things, 7 years ago. It was only 7 years ago that I found the value and the necessity of building a budget. The reason that became such an important exercise for me was because at the time I had newly joined this collective of the C-suite in the organization that I was in. We were a small company that was growing really rapidly, and I was newly responsible for $180 million of annual spend. That's a lot of money. And I worked very closely with my BFF, my best finance friend, also known as the CFO, and the general counsel. And the three of us together were really this trifecta of running of the business, funding of the business, and then making sure we, didn't break any laws. We had a little CYA insurance policy with the general counsel with us. And it was my best finance friend, the CFO, that really educated me, taught me, and instilled in me that good financial hygiene, aka budgeting, was going to be the difference between us turning a profit and us going bankrupt. Literally. Remember, this is the story about how the business went from $50 million to $350 million in 3 years and went from massively in the red to in the black. It's all because we were really fantastic at creating a budgeting process. So the guidance and advice that I'm going to give you today is from that experience. It's from the 7 years that I have now had in repeating the process over and over and over again and watching it deliver the same results, the same positive results, whether it was for a business that I was working for or a business that I was working to support. So first, we're going to talk about why every business, every single one, whether you are 5 figures or you are 8 figures or 9 figures or 10 figures, needs an annual budget. The first myth that I want to dispel is that budgets are not restrictive in nature. What budgets actually provide you is clarity, control, and confidence. A budget is a decision-making tool. It provides you a line of sight and transparency into your business. It provides you boundaries and guide rails for operate within your business and make decisions as time progresses. When you don't have a budget, you are flying blind. You cannot forecast your cash. You have no idea how much you're going to have, how much is coming in, how much has to go out. You can't plan hiring. You can't make strategic investments. You don't even know if you should be paying that for that coaching program because you literally have no idea what's going on with your money. Like I was saying initially, budgets help you make informed decisions. Can I afford to hire this person? Is it the right time to invest in marketing? How much can I safely pay myself, the business owner, this year? Budgeting also creates accountability, not only for you, for your team, and accountability to your goals and achieving them. So now you may be sitting here going, okay, I've given you 5 minutes of my time. You have a point, but I don't like finance. I don't even create a personal budget. The last thing that I want to do is create one in my business. And the whole reason I started my business was so I could be nimble and flexible and carefree. If any of you out there have a successful business and you're carefree, can you call me? I would love to talk to you because I don't know a single business owner, myself included, who's living this carefree lifestyle. It's an ambition. I just don't see it as a reality. So you may be avoiding budgeting because you believe it's rigid or constrictive or complicated. It may even be that you don't really understand what it is, and so you're just avoiding it out of principle. You have no more capacity to learn a new skill. You can't see the value in the exercise. I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. The reality is that a great budget is just a living plan for your business. It will evolve as you do. That's the other podcast that I mentioned I'll record in the future. Is the budget is just a starting point. It's just the salvo into the conversation. It's not the conclusion. If you think about your business like a play or a great novel, the budget is just one of the introductory chapters. As character development happens, as events occur, as the storyline develops in front of you, so too does your budget evolve. It adapts and adjusts to the circumstances inside of your business. And so when you bring it with you and you treat it as a living plan, it will bend and flex and adjust and pivot and shift with you and your business likewise. It's not constrictive at all. Rather, it's a supporting mechanism to help you head in the right direction and stay there long term. Another way to look at a budget is as if it's a map. It's a resource map giving you guidance on how to allocate time and money and energy toward the right things and how to remove all of those things from things that are not productive or successful in your business. So maybe you're wondering now, okay, I agree, a budget is necessary. But what do I do? How do I create a budget? Do I need to hire a CFO? I need to pay my bookkeeper or my controller to do something like this? Seems like it's going to be more expensive than it's worth. You don't need any of them. You can actually do this yourself. You can create a simple Google sheet where you can build a budget on your own. We've talked about your profit and loss report before, and one of the things that we've talked about is that you get to decide what information it communicates to you. You get to decide how things are categorized. You get to decide what language you want to use, and you get to build those reports in a way that are meaningful for you, that are going to tell you the information that you need to make decisions. So just like you have the ability to tailor your financial reports, you have the ability to build a budget that makes sense to you, to your team, and in the end can be leveraged as a tool that's not cumbersome, but's helpful. So the first step that you are going to follow when you're building a budget is to categorize your current spend. Now, I recommend that you look at a full calendar year. So if you are doing this in the fourth quarter, I should pause here. When should I build a budget? Build a budget in the fourth quarter so that you have an entire year's budget, January through December, already built before the year starts. Can you build it in January? Yes. Is it going to be rushed? Yes. Build it in the fourth quarter. So if you have more than 1 year's worth of information, go pull a full calendar year. So if you start this process in October, which is at the time that we're recording this, you'll hear this in early November, what you want to do is you want to take P&L information from October of 2024 all the way through September of 2025. There's your whole year. You're able to see it at a blush. And if you can, take 2 years worth of data so that you can really start to see what goes on and what trends there are. This first step, all you're doing is categorizing your spend. So you're going to look at those profit and loss reports and you're going to say, what are all of the categories that send money out of my business? And what you want to do is you want to identify specifically in as big of groupings as you can what the source is. So one is probably payroll. Another one might be subscriptions. Maybe another one is training. Maybe another one is travel. Maybe another one is real estate. Maybe another one is social media or marketing. Maybe another one is advertising. You want to take all of the money that leaves your business every single month and you want to put it into a category. You can be as specific as you want. So if you want to say, here are all of the things that I have subscriptions for, line item by line item. You can see Canva and Zoom and Slack and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can make this as detailed or as high level as you want. This is up to you. This is your tool to build your budget. So once you have all of your spend categorized, then the next thing is you're going to indicate whether the spend is recurring, happens all the time, and maybe it's recurring once a month, maybe it's recurring annually, maybe it's recurring quarterly, recurring and frequency. If it's one time, maybe it was project-based, maybe you had your website rebuilt, you're not going to have that expense again. Maybe it was a photo shoot, maybe it was equipment purchases that you're not going to have again, so it's a one-time expense. Maybe you've got a category where it's not needed. It's an expense that no longer provides value. Maybe you outsourced social media development last year and you realized it's better off in-house. And so you had an expense for social media, but that won't continue because you've rolled that into payroll. And the last category is where you need to invest more. So what you want to take a look at is, this was the spend there, but I should really be spending more money. Sometimes that happens with advertising. So you can say, generally speaking, I pay $5,000 a month for advertising, and that's a monthly recurring expense, and really I should be spending more in that category. This creates your spend map. It's the foundation for next year's budget. So this is how much money is going out the door. You're able to see at a glance from a monthly basis, from a quarterly basis, from an annual basis, how much money you are spending. The second step is to create expense budgets by category. So now that you have put everything into a category, you've been able to determine the classification. So it's recurring, it's one time, it's not needed, I need to spend more money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What you're going to do is you're actually going to create a budget. And I like to build these month by month. You can build them on an annual or quarterly basis too. My recommendation is always month by month, because what ends up happening with these recurring ones is that the expense hits at different times. You did not subscribe to annual subscriptions all on the same date in the same month. You just didn't. You're going to watch Zoom renew annually in February maybe, and then you're going to watch Asana renew annually in August, and then you're going to have things in between, and then you're going to have monthly renewals as well for other subscriptions that you have. So I like to chart this out on a monthly basis so it can be really, really clear on when the expense is going to hit. Use your historical data as a baseline for this. And I use the historical data to come up with by category what the budget should be. So it could be that over time, a category, let's say it's for insurance, and let's say that over time, your insurance has increased on an annual basis. So then I would say, well, if every year my insurance is increasing, I'm going to create a budget that shows my insurance increasing again this year. So use historical information as a context. And if you have variability, maybe you're paying for software licenses and it comes and goes based on the number of people you have working in your business and it's variable, just take the collective 24-month average and say that's going to be what your budget is for the month. For each line item, you are going to decide if you want to maintain the spend from prior periods, if you want to reduce the spend, or if you want to increase it. So when you're coming up with that budget number, you want to look at all of the reasons that it is what it has been in the past and say it's going to stay steady and we're going to keep it there, which is maintain. We're spending too much money on this. Maybe we have too many Google G Suite licenses and we just need to go cull the herd a little bit. You're going to reduce, or maybe it's that you need to increase spend, like with the advertising example, and so you intentionally need to say it needs to go higher than it has been before. And then as a future activity, you'll do this assessment on a quarterly basis to determine if your budget is in line with what's actually happening. We'll talk about that later on, but you want to just kind of understand that this is a point in time assessment and determination, and that you have the ability to go back and adjust it as your year progresses once the year begins. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do is that you build in contingency. And the reason for that is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if prices are going to go up for something. You don't know if a tariff is going to be applied to something. You don't know what the future holds. So I always add at the very, very bottom a discretionary line item that says contingency. And so I add up all of the spend that I plan on a monthly basis, and then I add 5 to 10% just as a placeholder in case something happens and these things end up being more expensive than I thought they were going to be. Once you have completed this step, the next thing for you to do is to review your staffing plans. It is true in every business that people is often the largest expense, and you should plan for that. So what you want to be able to do is you need to look at your current payroll and determine, am I making any changes there? Am I giving any cost of living adjustments? What percentage will that be? Am I going to be paying any bonuses? Am I going to be adjusting any salaries? What am I going to be doing with what I pay others? Do I have the need to promote somebody? And you're going to want to include that in the budget. All of the things that you want to do there is you want to look at the existing expense that you have and say, what potentially is going to change with this? So cost of living adjustment, annual pay raises, bonus payouts if you're planning to do that, any sort of promotion activity that you're thinking of having, which will adjust their wage. You want to make sure also that if you're adjusting actual wages, that you adjust what you're going to be paying in taxes and benefits. So you want to make sure that you're calculating the total comp expense and you're not just saying, well, Sally makes $80K now and she's going to make $90K next year, so that's what we're going to carry forward. You actually really want to make sure that not only do you calculate their gross base salary, you calculate all of the other expenses with it. That's also just as a reminder, when you're creating the budget categories above, include taxes in your budget category. That's an expense that your business has. It should be an expense in your P&L. You want to budget to pay your taxes also, just as an aside. As you're reviewing these staffing plans, like I said, another consideration for you to make is any role going to change from a contractor to an employee? And if it does, then what you do is you take the contractor expense out of that category and you put more payroll expense in if that role is going to shift. And you would do that at the period of time that you would expect it to. So if you expect by June to stop having a contractor do something and start having an employee do it, then that's where you would show that budget adjustment and shift. You wouldn't do it in January. You would do it at the point of change. This ensures that you're not surprised mid-year by staffing costs. This ensures also that you have a really clear picture of the real expense in the business. It's just another expense category, but this is one where you have to do a little bit more diligence because you need to think about what you're going to be offering to your employees and ensure it's included and accounted for in your budget. Now, this staffing process is not yet done because the next step that you need to do, so the commiserate part of this is how much money we're going to spend, is this is how much money we're going to make. So you need to also forecast your projected revenue. And this again is where you lean into history, because the more historical data you have, the more you're going to understand where your busy seasons are and where your slow seasons are. So you're going to be able to say, on average in January, we make $80,000. We've done it the last 3 years in a row. On average in December, we make $300,000. This is what this looks like. You're able to actually project your revenue. Part of this is that you want to take all of that historical information and say, if the first principle in business is to do it again, so achieve the same level of success that I achieved in the prior year, then what you want to do is you want to duplicate what your revenue achievements were in the prior year, the last 24 months. And so you get there. So let's say that in the last couple of years, generally speaking, you've made $3 million in your business. You want to make sure that your revenue plan for the upcoming year is $3 million and that it is variable based on how your season or how your business performs by season. It's taking into account seasonal peaks and valleys. It's taking into account busy and slow seasons. It's taking into account expansion and contraction patterns and things that trigger that. You're going to use data to forecast expected revenue for the next year. And you want to do this by month, just as you did with everything else. Now, if you built your budget by quarter, you build your revenue projections by quarter also. You need these things to match and be in the same approach and methodology. So you can't have one at months and one's at quarters, one at annual, one at months. It doesn't make any sense. You have to have them both talking to each other. Now, when you do that, you have if I just do it again, this is what this looks like. If I just do it again, this is how I will do it. And then what you need to say is, I don't want to just do it again. I want to grow by 5%. I don't want to just do it again. I want to grow by 25%. Whatever your goal is. I did 3 million the last 2 years. I want to do 4 million this year. However it shakes out. Following the patterns that you use to build the $3 million plan, you're going to build the $4 million plan. That's it. You're going to adjust your revenue plan to match your revenue target, taking into account seasonal peaks and valleys, busy and slow seasons, and patterns of contraction and expansion in your business. Then, once you have a revenue plan, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your expense plan, your budget, with your revenue plan, and you're going to say, if I achieve this revenue, do I need to spend more money? If I achieve this revenue, do I need to hire more people? If I achieve this revenue, what adjusts? You see, if you pay for things, Zoom is a great example, by seat, and you know to achieve $4 million this year, you actually need to hire 3 more people. You need to include their fully loaded payroll costs, and in every expense category like Zoom, where there's additional expense per seat or per head, you need to increase the budget. So what ends up happening is you say, I've increased my revenue target, and in order to achieve that revenue, I need to hire 3 more people, and those 3 people are going to need to get paid, and then they're going to need access to our tech stack, and that's going to create some additional expense. It's a full 360-degree view, because what you're going to do, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, is you're going to figure out if you can afford it. I know. That's where the reality of budgets comes in. So you need to look at that revenue target as you laid it out and say, is there anything else I need to do differently to achieve it? Do I need to spend more on advertising dollars? Do I need to hire more people? Do I need more systems? Do I need more contractors? Do I need new tech? Like, what do I need to get there? And then you're going to adjust your expenses to align with your projected revenue goals. And then once you've got that settled, we're going to make $4 million. This is how much we need to spend to make the $4 million. You're going to look at your profit margin. I know, this is the buzzkill of all buzzkills. Once you have your projected revenue and your expenses, calculate your profit margin and then assess it. Is this adequate based on your goals and industry benchmarks? If all of a sudden you do all of those things and your profit margin is at 1%, I'm guessing that's not adequate. If it's too low, then you're going to eliminate or reduce expenses. That's it. If it's too low, you're going to evaluate where you can cut back until you can get it in line with what you need. It's just the reality. Now, one approach is to say, well, When I was making $3 million, I was making a 30% profit margin. So when I make $4 million, I need to make a 30% profit margin. And if you come back and you're only making a 20% profit margin, then what you have to talk to yourself about is it okay for me to only make 20% at 4 million, because once I get to 5 million, I'll be back at 30% and I don't need to do anything different to go from 3 to 5. I don't know. You'll have to ask that question. Or do you say, I'm okay losing some profit margin to get some top line growth? Or you say, I need to reduce my expenses so that I can get the top line growth that I want and keep the profit margin intact. These are levers. You get to decide. This is up to you at the end of the day. It is your choice how your business performs. Having this information allows you to choose. It allows you to choose what profit margin you want. It allows you to choose what's most important to you. It allows you to make informed decisions so that you're not surprised when it actually happens. Now, in the circumstance that that it's too low, another option, if your profit margin is too low, another option is that you can increase your revenue targets. You can do it through changing pricing. You can do it through increased sales. You can do it through marketing, which also has expense associated with it. There are other ways without you cutting expense, which also equals generating more revenue. Now, if you were in a situation where the last couple of years you made 3 million and now you've created a stretch goal of 4, I would not recommending moving that to 5 just so that your profit margin plan is healthy. If you do not believe you can achieve the revenue target, do not make it your target. This is not just so you can get an A on the test and everything shakes out. You need to ensure that whatever mile markers you have set, whatever goals you have declared, that you can actually achieve them. So if you have not yet achieved incremental growth year over year, I do not recommend you creating some crazy stretch goal for revenue unless you have something brand new that's going to come out and blow everything out of the water. Be smart. It's always easier to cut expense than it is to outsize a revenue target that you don't achieve, because what's going to end up happening is if you create a $5 million revenue target when really you thought that 4 million was a stretch and you don't cut your expenses, that profit margin may not be 20% anymore. It might be 10. And that means that while your top line grew, you actually shrunk the value of the business overall. And then, okay, so now we've done all of these things. We've harmonized expense and revenue. We've made sure that we've pulled all the levers. We're happy with our profit margin. The last thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at discretionary spend. So this is all the extras. This is the holiday party. This is the team trip. This is the coaching or consulting or training. This is mastermind memberships. This is retreats. This is gifting. This is all of the fun stuff, the extra stuff that's not necessary to run your business. Create budgets for those too, and then recalculate your profit margin. You know that you want to spend 6 figures on yourself for continued education. Put that in, calculate your profit margin, and figure out if you can afford it. And if you can't, then you need to right size your expectations. Because what I see often happen in business is that there is no budget, an opportunity comes along, you check your bank account, you're like, there's money here, I'm gonna go do that thing. And then all of a sudden you're cash strapped and panicked and trying to generate revenue because you overinvested in something that you weren't ready to take on. This is why creating the budget is so important, because it allows you to make decisions. If I invest 6 figures in training for myself for the year and my profit margin slides back 5 basis points, am I okay with it? If the answer is yes, because you think that this is going to be a slingshot effect where it pulls you back to propel you forward, go do it. I've watched that happen more times than I can count, where somebody has really bet on themselves, hasn't figured out how it's going to pay for itself, and sure enough, pulled back and catapulted forward, and they had exponential, amazing success. You just want to do it from an informed place. And the informed place isn't calling the bank and seeing if you have enough money in your line of credit or your small business loan or your bank account to pay for it. It's, can the business handle the burden of the expense over time? Am I okay with what it's going to do? Make the final adjustments after you have all of that in, and create that discretionary line item. Create that budget for yourself, whatever it is. And then once you have all of that, your budget's complete. You have a clear budget for every expense category. You have realistic, data-informed revenue plan. And you have a profit margin that you are feeling really good about and satisfied with. You have a well-rounded view of the financial health of your business and what you're planning to achieve next year. Not just a top-line revenue target. You actually understand the financial mechanism of your business and how you are going to manage and make decisions for the next 12 months. The very last step for this whole thing is to put it into action. And that's where we'll have another conversation about what you do once you're in year. What do I do with this budget? How do I maintain it? How do I work through it? But really, it's to just start living with it. Do not build this and then put it on a shelf and forget it. That's not the purpose of this. It's really so that you can set yourself up for success, provide yourself a solid foundation of data to make decisions as you move forward. To wrap all of this up as succinctly as I can, a good budget isn't about saying no to spending. It's about saying yes to what matters most. When it's done right, your budget becomes a roadmap. It makes growth predictable and sustainable. And if you dread this process, is 100% okay from one person to another that does not like finance. You just need the framework. And you need a simple way to define your spend and your revenue goals to make faster, more effective decisions over time. That's it. The budget is just a tool, and it's going to help you be a better business owner. It's going to help you be a better manager and mentor, and it's going to relieve stress from you because you have a decisive way forward. I hope that this was helpful to you. If you know other business owners out there in this space that are really trying to think about next year and what they can achieve, do me a favor and share this podcast. This is an operation person's perspective on how to create a budget. It's not coming from a CFO or a CPA, so it's more accessible and easier to understand. And after all, we all want long-term, healthy, viable businesses. And understanding our finances and using them as a tool is the way to do it. Until next time, friends, please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are capable, and I believe in you.